And
This meeting is being recorded.
And hand over to Heather. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Alison. Let me just get that up. Can I just check that people can see the slides? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's showing it as the PowerPoint window rather than slideshow.
Is that showing okay now? Yeah, lovely. Okay. Thank you for those very kind words of introduction, Alison. And thank you all for choosing to join this webinar. I hope you find it helpful and interesting. As Alison said, I'm the church insurance consultant with Ecclesiastical Insurance, so I cover all of the dioceses in the Northwest, and my role very much is to support our parish customers at ground level with risk management, health and safety, and as I'm doing today, fundraising. We're part of the Benefact Group, which is owned by the Benefact Trust, which some of you might have known as the All Churches Trust. So the great thing about that, and one of the things that motivates me for working for Ecclesiastical, is that all of our available profits go to the trust for us then for them to distribute as grants to churches and charities. So if you're thinking of a project that needs some funding, please do go onto the Benefact Trust website to see if there's a funding stream that might fit your project. So just an overview of our fundraising hub and the resources available. We recognised that fundraising can be really complex, and sometimes it's really difficult to know where to start. And it's often left to very busy volunteers or clergy. And so we wanted to make resources available to try and make it a little bit easier to navigate that fundraising landscape, with the aim of making that fundraising campaign and fundraising journey successful. So we've produced some easy guidance to take you step by step through, as I said, just to try and simplify it and make it easier. In addition to the fundraising hub, we've got some other resources as well, which I just want to quickly take you through. We've got webinars, which are available via our website, and that's on key targets. So there's things about using social media, digital fundraising, engaging with donors, looking at successful fundraising campaigns. We've got Fundraising in a Box, which is a printed hard copy resource of much that's on the online hub. If you haven't got a copy of that and you want one, if you go into our booth within this conference, you can request a copy. And we do local training. And as I said, for the Northwest, it's me that delivers that training. So let's go on to actually look at what resources we've got in the fundraising hub. The first thing we talk about is building that fundraising team. Now, it's likely to be driven by one or two people, but it's helpful to get a wider team together. And this provides wider support, wider buy-in. It's likely that you're going to have different tasks to complete through the course of the fundraising campaign. So different tasks are going to need different skills and potentially different people. And fundraising campaigns aren't for the faint-hearted. For anyone who's been involved in any fundraising, it can take a long time, especially if it's a large capital project. And so having that wider team can really help with motivation and the inevitable ups and downs that you're likely to experience. As I said, you're likely to need different skills. So it's about identifying what those skills are. Do you have them to hand, or are there shortfalls that you might need to look elsewhere? And where can those shortfalls be met? Is it within the wider congregation, or does the fundraising campaign itself offer opportunities for mission so that you can reach out to the community and see who else is out there who might be able to help you. There might even be businesses who are able to help you and assist you in some way. We've got a skills audit template that you can download so that you're not having to reinvent the wheel, and to help you through that process of identifying skills and people who may be able to help you. Remember to target your ask so that people know what's expected of them in terms of commitment and time. What is it you want them to do? So be specific rather than a vague, we need volunteers. If you're specific and they can see the difference that they can be able to, that they'll make, the particular skills that they can bring, you're more likely to be successful. And those conversations you have with people, it's an opportunity to infect them with the enthusiasm of the project and the difference that the project will make. Because most people, I think it's fair to say, they live in a community where they want to have a positive impact on it and that they want to make a difference. And working through a church fundraising project is a really good opportunity for people to get involved with their local community. If you only take one thing away from this webinar, it's this: to have this at the heart of your fundraising campaign and at the forefront of your brain whenever you're thinking about your fundraising campaign. It should be the focus of any grant application and any ask from donors giving you money. You need to be identifying what's the need for the project, what are the solutions that you've come up with, and what the difference will be to your project. And in so doing, the difference that people's individual donations will make, or the grant from a trust fund will make. And identifying need, you can do that through your own mission, partnerships that you might have developed with other organisations within your community. You might have undertaken some consultations with local groups, local businesses, groups that use your church, the congregation themselves. And if you haven't undertaken any consultation, it's a really good idea to start that. And it doesn't need to be complicated. It can just be inviting people into your church for a cup of tea and a piece of cake. And it's funders increasingly want to see what consultation that you've undertaken, because it's a way of providing hard evidence of what the need is. And of course, we've got the good old Church of England that are really good at providing stats and statistical information. And you're very fortunate to have Alison Peacock, who you can liaise with to help you find the right information to help you support your application. Outcomes and outputs. For any of you that have already sort of started looking at fundraising, you inevitably would have come across these terms. Donors and trusts want to give money because they want to make a difference. That's what they're about. And so you've got these two words, outputs and outcomes. And they are different, although sometimes they're used interchangeably, but they are actually different. The output is the services or goods that are going to be delivered, and the outcome, this is the thing the trust funders want to know, the outcome is the difference that the output will make. So to give you a simple example, an output of your church's food bank, say, may be that there's going to be 50 emergency parcels delivered every week. The outcome is that the families across the communities where these parcels are given won't go hungry or go into debt to buy food. So you can clearly demonstrate the outcome and the impact that it's going to have on families who receive those food parcels. Most funders will want a report on what difference the project has made, i.e. the outcomes. So think about how you're going to collate the information to demonstrate this. It might be through interviews with users of the project, a focus group where you get people around the table, again, with a cup of tea and a piece of cake. I always find that works really well to get people talking. Media coverage. Are people having conversations or making comments on your Facebook page? Or if you've got a Twitter account, are people retweeting with comments? Some funders will tell you how they want this reporting. Other funders will leave it up to you. We've got a webinar on our website to help you think about how you evaluate your project, and the Benefact Trust has lots of guidance too, so go on to their website. Now let's go on about looking at researching for donors and funders. Grants and giving are going to come from lots of different sources. It could be trusts, it could be the community themselves, congregation, or it could be local businesses. And each will have their criteria and their reasons for giving. So it's important for you to approach the right funder in the right way. You might use grant databases. So for Manchester, you've got Open for Community, where you can just put your criteria in, what money you're looking for, why you're looking for it, the areas you're looking to get support for. And it will throw out a list of funders that you can then drill down into to see if they're appropriate for your project. The funders themselves will have lots of information on their website. You can always often give them a call. There'll often be a grant officer that you can speak to. It's also worth speaking to other churches and other charities to see where they've got money from. And could I signpost you to the Historic Religious Buildings Alliance newsletter? If you haven't signed up for that already, a really valuable thing to have popping into your inbox. Not only does it give you a lot of information about grants that are coming online, lots of other relevant information for places of worship as well. So do go and have a look at those if you haven't already. And remember, it's not just cash. Businesses may be able to offer something different as well. I was interested. I was at a church a couple of weeks ago and they'd got a grant from Dobby's Garden Centre. And whilst the £500 grant was really valuable, what was more valuable for them was the mentor that they were given from the Garden Centre. So they had this mentor for 12 months who was able to provide advice on gardening and plants and landscaping. Think about opportunities for earned income. There's a really fabulous example in Lofthouse in West Yorkshire of a cafe, which again, you can think I'm obsessed with cake and coffee, but they serve really good cake and coffee. And that came out of a need that they found in COVID. And they also use the cafe space as an art gallery as well. So it's an opportunity for local artists and local community groups to actually sell their art. So a real lovely partnership there. And the Plunkett Foundation, Benefact Trust partnered with them to provide some grant funding to provide feasibility grants for social enterprises or for churches thinking about social enterprise in their church building. When you're researching donors, it can be quite complex and you can end up collating lots and lots and lots of information. So we've developed this simple template basically just to help you document your research so that you've got all the information to hand that you need. And again, that's online for you to be able to download. Online giving, this slide is just demonstrating that there's lots of different ways to get money through online giving. And again, this slide will be made available so that you'll be able to go on and look at the individual areas that are listed there. The beauty of online fundraising is it just widens your reach and you can reach people that you may not otherwise get. And it can be a national or international reach that you can get out to. But remember, online giving, it is just a mechanism making it easier for people to give. But there still needs to be that strong fundraising message. Why are you raising money? What's it going to go towards? And what difference is it going to make? The top right hand corner is just about online security, and it's just about reassuring people that online giving is safe and secure. It can feel, if you're not used to the digital world or social media, it can feel really daunting. And I just signpost you to a lovely story at Haworth Church, which is just down the road from where I live. They get a lot of international footfall, as you can imagine, because of the Bronte connection. They felt that they weren't really targeting their giving in the right way, that they were kind of missing out on that wider footfall. And so they considered using contactless giving, felt completely overwhelmed by the thought of using contactless giving. But when I went to see them, they said they wouldn't go back. It's been so successful and has actually increased their giving considerably. And actually it wasn't as complicated as they thought it was going to be. Think about why people give. And we heard in some of the other speakers earlier on about congregational giving and about that giving as a gift, as being a disciple and reflecting the nature of God to meet mission and ministry costs. Congregational community giving is likely to have a different motivation. It might be because they have a particular interest in the church building or historic church buildings generally, or they might have been to your church because of some important life event, or you might have a particular project that is particularly close to their heart. So just think about your messaging and the language that you use to who you're trying to target, because language will either encourage or it could even dissuade people from giving if they don't identify with the language that you're using. There'll be lots and lots of different things that you need to collate for your grant applications. And so we've provided a checklist for grant applications just to make sure that you've got everything that you need, that you haven't overlooked everything. So it's just helping you with your fundraising preparation and highlights the key areas that you need to make sure that are covered. Case for support, we've talked a little bit before. What's the need for your project, what the evidence is, and how have you collated that to demonstrate that need. The costs, how have those costs been arrived at? Are they accurate? Is there VAT included? Is there contingency in terms of timescales and costs as well? Leadership and volunteers, do you have the right people in place? Are there opportunities to involve others beyond the church, tying that into the mission of your church? Getting that wider buy-in and potentially expertise for the project. I was involved with a church again a few months ago. I went to see them over in Liverpool. They were really struggling with their fundraising. They were putting in lots of applications, but they weren't really getting any funders to bite. And then they managed to happen upon somebody, just having a conversation with somebody outside of the church environment. And he said, I'll come and help you. I've got a bit of a fundraising background. They've got him involved and he's actually heading up their fundraising campaign. He's not involved on a day-to-day basis in the worship of the church, but he's really willing to bring his expertise to the church, and it's really changed their focus and has brought a new energy to the church as well. Think about your fundraising and project plans, and again we've got templates that you can download to help you with this. Is there a clear plan of what needs to be raised and why, and what's the plan for delivering the project? So what are the milestones and are they clearly defined? And the milestones could be things like permissions. So have you got the faculty in place, the appointment of the professional team and contractors, when you're looking to start on site, and completion. And again, like I said, we've got those templates there to help you. And have these been tied into a risk register? So identifying the project risks with the mitigation. What things can go wrong, and there will be things that go wrong, but there, if you plan ahead and think ahead, you can think about how to mitigate against those risks to minimize them derailing your project. And the risk register template that we've got for you to download will help you score these risks so that you can identify what the greatest risks are, and in so doing, which is going to cause the greatest harm, and those that you need to pay more attention to. In terms of administration, do you have systems established? Do you have clear roles and responsibilities for those involved? What are your decision-making processes? And as I said, we've got that template to help you organise your research. Monitoring and evaluation, again, I would just signpost you to our webinar and the benefactress that has lots of resources to help you with your monitoring and evaluation. The thing I would say at this point is just make sure that monitoring and evaluation is embedded right at the beginning of your project, so that you know how you're going to do it and how you're going to demonstrate the success. Or even failure of the project, because that can be equally as valuable, because you can use that as a learning process as well. So never worry about a project failing or not achieving what you think it was going to achieve when you set out. We have what we call a top tips resource, and this is very much a sort of high level, just covering the things that you need to think about. And at the top of that is about communicating your message, because if you're not clear about what your fundraising campaign is about, you're not going to be getting people buying in, and you're unlikely to get people wanting to donate, because people will donate to things that they know their money, their hard-earned cash will make a difference to. So think about a vision statement for your church, which should be no more really than 20 words. And it's about articulating about what it is you want to achieve. If you're struggling to think of a vision statement, just Google and have a look at others and what their vision statements are, to try and get some inspiration. And again, I came across the YMCA recently, which I thought was a really good vision statement, and the Alzheimer's Society. Not necessarily, they're not church vision statements, but it is about the difference they want to make to their community or their particular area. Are there networks and partnerships that are already established, or is there potential to develop more? And do these opportunities themselves identify unmet need that could be developed into a project that the church could help deliver and find funding for? And develop that confidence to talk about money. And again, that was mentioned earlier on in today's conference. Frame it in the relation to the difference the donation would make. This isn't necessarily about just raising money for the sake of raising money for the church. It's demonstrating how that money will make a difference to the mission of the church and what you're wanting to achieve, and the difference it will make to the community in which the church is situated. It's all about conversations and developing relationships. Now, researching donors and grant funds, it takes time, and these need to be nurtured. If you successfully deliver a project, you're more likely to get funding from the trust again, or people are more likely to provide a future donation, because that they've seen that you've used the money that's been given wisely and it's been used for the purpose that you'd said it was going to be used for. I'd already said make sure that you make it easy for people to give, so find multiple ways for people to give. Make it inclusive rather than exclusive. So, have those electronic measures, but also those there'll be people who still want to give in good old cash. We're developing our resources all of the time. Sometimes it's responding to a particular need. So obviously through COVID, a lot of our resources were aimed at COVID resilience and supporting our churches around COVID related issues, but also from feedback from customers. And the rural churches is an example of that. Now, our rural churches resource focuses on opportunities stemming from things like tourism, reduced public services, so things like shops and post offices closing in rural areas. And I mentioned the Plunkett Foundation providing feasibility funding for looking at social enterprise in churches. But ancient churchyards, what opportunities are there for biodiversity? You've got the excellent resources from Kevin from God's Acre. You've got the wonderful example, in my opinion, of New Church, St Nicholas, where they did a Heritage Lottery funded project looking at biodiversity, improving habitats, headstone maintenance. And they, like I said, they got money from the Heritage Lottery Fund to do that, and it engaged the local community and really, I think, obviously improved the look of that churchyard as well. Now, although these are targeted for rural parishes, I think they're equally useful for urban churches. So don't be put off by them being called resources for rural parishes. My final slide is useful web links just for various resources that are available to help you. And again, this will be made available for you so you can tap on and explore all those different areas and different organisations. This is that's where you can find the Church Raising Hub on our website. We've also got a dedicated helpline which you can see there and take a note of. If you ring through to that, you'll request a callback. If you're attending from the Northwest, it'll be myself that calls you back. If you're attending from somewhere else in the country, it'll be one of my church insurance consultants from elsewhere who will contact you. But please do be in contact if we or I can help you in any other way. Alison, I think it's back to you, please. Thank you.
Right. First of all, to say a really big thank you to Heather for such a comprehensive and cogent presentation. We have just under 10 minutes for a bit of verbal Q&A, but remember, you've always got the option within the Hoover app using the area to the right of your screen for Q&A. Please use the reactions hand raised to indicate that you've got a question, or if you feel easier doing this, just put your video on and unmute yourselves, and I think we're a small enough group for this to work. Okay, so does anyone have a question?
Yeah.
Nick.
Heather, from your experience recently, are there changes you're aware of globally in terms of the sort of things that are becoming easier to find funding for, and the sort of things that are getting harder? Because obviously, as needs change and the resources of funders are stretched, so sometimes in the many priorities that churches can have, there can be a choice which we go for first. So where are the areas that it's going to be easier or harder than other times to get funding?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that question, Nick. I think we're still coming out of sort of that COVID recovery, so I think there's still that emphasis on COVID resilience and I guess the issues that have come out of COVID, and obviously the obvious one of that is isolation and mental health. I think generally the focus is people. So I think which actually is a really broad brush, really, isn't it? And it's as simple as, what project are you doing that is people focused? And this is the challenge, I think, for a lot of churches, because a lot of churches need funding for their church building. You know, they need the roofs repaired, they need new heating systems, they need better lighting. So I would say the hard thing is about finding funding for capital repair projects, because we've lost so much. We lost the fund, you know, it went from Historic England through to the National Lottery, the Heritage Fund. and then we had the ring-fenced Heritage Lottery Fund, Places of Worship grant scheme. That's now gone, and we're just in the general fund with everybody else. So getting funding for capital projects for historic church buildings is really difficult. What I would say is focus it on how those capital repairs are going to improve the lives of people within the community. So, for example, if you're looking at a new heating system, how is that going to impact on people? So obviously it would be things like, you know, can you tie it into the Warm Places initiative that's coming out, you know, about the building will be warmer for people using it, for if you've got a toddler group. So it's about thinking about how does that capital repair improve people's lives that are coming to the church building. The other thing I would say is don't chase grants. Look at what the priorities and the needs are in your church, and then look for grant funding that meets that criteria. And there will be a grant funder there somewhere, but don't chase the money, because often grant funders will see that that's what you're doing and trying to fit your need with their grant criteria rather than the other way around. Does that help?
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Okay. Have we any other questions? It looks as if you've satisfied everyone.
Well, either that or completely bored people and they've actually gone for an early lunch.
But I am very conscious that, Jonathan?
No, I was just going to say thank you very much. It's been very helpful, particularly in conjunction with the previous session around community enterprises in churches. To hear these two things from both angles has been really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
In which case, I just simply done it.
Likewise, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, in which case I will simply add my thanks to that of the group. I'm very conscious now that this is a packed programme and you're in need of some downtime and also some refreshment. So I suggest that we wind up now, but don't forget that you can continue to ask further questions either through the Q&A or contacting directly. And it's always worth visiting the booth in the exhibitor space for Ecclesiastical, where you'll get more information on some of the issues she shared. So thank you to Heather and thank you to all of you for coming.